Kesavasya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Deve Sachavachai Namo Namaha. Jai Tulsi Maharani Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Time for class. So what verse are we going to do? I need a table in front of me.
This way or
This side, yeah, so it's not blocking. I don't want to block everybody. Hey. Okay. All right. Sounds. Any section of the Bhagavatam you've been reading or what? No.
No, you can do whatever. Last time you were following US one.
So not the
What?
Jaiva, not the Jaiva Dharma, no, we're not gonna carry that.
Continue.
You want me to continue the Jaiva Dharma?
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it doesn't.
I have, well, maybe tomorrow because I got to bring my other computer. For that.
Oh, I see.
Can't do it on this computer. Yeah, so tomorrow we can do the Jaiva Dharma. So someone should check or tell me what verse they want to, just give me in any of the verses. Because I got the whole Bhagavatam here. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay.
I'm reading at the moment. I'll tell you which one it is.
Okay. Choose your verse.
1 second. It's,
Okay.
It's in your other group.
yeah, I've got it here.
Can
What verse?
There we go. 1 second. It's,
Another mala.
do
okay, so today is April. At the moment, there's what about 1923?
1923. Okay, hold on a second.
So we're reading the book.
Okay. 1923.
you can
1923.
1923.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
passing away of Bhishma.
chapter 9 is exactly passing away of Bhishma Dev in the presence of Buddha.
Okay. Where did it go? Okay, so chant. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Malaba Girivaruraji
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopi Jana Malaba Girivaruraji
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Jana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Jaya Janaranjana
Yamuna Tera Vanachari
Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tera Vanachari
Tira Vanachari
Jai Horad Umarpa Punya Vigamode
Jaya Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jai Horad Umarpa Punya Vigamode
Jaya Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari
Upijana Palaga Vidiganu Tagode
Gopi Jana Vallabha Viradhari
Upijana Palaga Vidiganu Tagode
Gopi Jana Vallabha Viradhari
Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana
Shivananda Raja Janaranjana
Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana
Shivananda Raja Janaranjana
Unatera Vanachari
Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tera Vanachari
Tira Vanachari
Jai Horad Bhakuva Kunja Viharati
Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari
Horad Bhakuva Kunja Viharati
Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Sabaya Chatananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shitwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Machuradam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvati Pachani Namaste Sanyavadi Paschati Shatari. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 9th chapter, text 23. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Does everyone have the verse so we can read responsibly? Vakcha Vaishya Mano Yasmin Vacha Yan Nama Kirtayan Jajan
Yajan
Kalevaram
Kalevaram
Yogi
Yogi
Muchyate
Muchyate
Kama
Kama
Karma Bihi.
Karma Vihi.
So who wants? Oh, I should do it first. Bhaktya Vaishamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vacha Yannama Kirtiya
Vachayanama Kirtaya
Jajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bhiki
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Bhaktya Vaishamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vacha Yannama Kirtiyan
Vachayanama Kirtaya
Jajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bhiki
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Bhaktya Vaishamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vacha Yannama Kirtiyan
Vachayanama Kirtaya
Jajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bhiki.
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Okay.
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bihi.
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Tajayan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karmibihi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bhi.
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vachayan Nama Kirtayan
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Vihi
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Bhaktya Vaishamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vachayannama Kirtayan
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bihi
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Bhi
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Bhaktya Veshamano Yasmin
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Vachayanama Kirtayan
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Yajan Kalevaram Yogi
Muchyate Kama Karma Vihi
Mujhate Kama Karma Vihi.
Okay. Bhaktya
Bhaktya
with devout attention.
with devout attention.
Avesha
Avesha
meditating.
meditating.
Mana
Mana
mind.
Mind.
Yasmin
Yasmin
in whose.
in whose.
Vacha
Vacha
by words.
by words.
Yat
Yat
Krishna.
Krishna.
Nama holy name.
Holy name.
Kirtayan
Kirtayan
by chanting.
by chanting.
Jajan
Yajan
quitting.
quitting.
Kalevaram
Kalevaram
this material body.
this material body.
Yogi
Yogi
the devotee.
devotee.
Muchyate
Mujhate
gets release.
gets released.
Kama karma bhiki
Kama Karma Vihi.
from fruit of activities.
From fruitive activities.
So translation, the personality of Godhead, who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, by chanting of the holy name, releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. So you can repeat, the personality of Godhead,
The
Personality of Godhead
who appears in the mind of the devotee
who appears in the mind of the devotee
by attentive devotion and meditation,
by attentive devotion and meditation,
and by chanting of the holy name,
by chanting the holy name,
releases the devotee
releases the devotee
from the bondage of fruitive activities
from the bondage of fruitive activities
at the time of his quitting the material body.
at the time of his quitting the material body.
So purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yoga means concentration of the mind detached from all other subject matter. And actually such concentration is samadhi, or percent engagement in the service of the Lord. And one who concentrates his attention in this manner is called a yogi. Such a yogi devotee of the Lord engages himself 24 hours daily in the service of the Lord, so that his whole attention is engrossed with the thoughts of the Lord in ninefold devotional service, namely hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, praying, becoming a voluntary servant, carrying out orders, establishing a friendly relationship, or offering all that one may possess in the service of the Lord. By such practice of yoga, or linking up in the service of the Lord, one is recognized by the Lord himself, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita concerning the highest perfectional stage of samadhi. The Lord calls such a rare devotee the best amongst all the devotees. Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with a perfect sense of consciousness. And thus, by chanting his holy name before quitting the body, the yogi is at once transferred by the internal energy of the Lord to one of the eternal planets where there is no question of material life and its concomitant factors. In material existence, a living being has to endure the material conditions of threefold miseries, life after life, according to his fruit of work. Such material life is produced by material desires only. Devotional service to the Lord does not kill the natural desires of the living being, but they are applied in the right cause of devotional service. This qualifies the desire to be transferred to the spiritual sky. General Bhishma Deva is referring to a particular type of yoga called Bhakti Yoga. And he was fortunate enough to have the Lord directly in his presence before he quitted his material body. He therefore desired that the Lord stay before his view in the following verses. Beautiful verse. Vakja Vesha Mano Yasmin. No. At the end I just do myself. Vacha Yanama Kirtiyan Tishan Kalevaram Yogi Muchate Kama Karma Vihi. So Om Ganatha Viranda Shah Garanjana Stakaya Chakshur Vintam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the whole point is what Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo, to fix the mind on Krishna. And that's a difficult thing, isn't it? Because, as mentioned by Krishna in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhogaishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Aprita Chetasam Vyavasayatmaka Buddhir Samado Navatiyate. You know the verse? Bhogaishvarya. That in this material world we are very attached to what? Bhoga and Bhoga. Bhoga. Of course, Bhoga means to enjoy without relationship with Krishna. That's not the actual meaning of the word, because Krishna is also a bhogi. In the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he's the bhogi. He's the enjoyer. But our problem is that we're thinking we're the enjoyer, and we're not taking into account Krishna. So therefore, Bhogaishvarya Prasaktanam, that attachment to the holy names or attachment to Krishna, Taya Prita Chetasam, does not occur in the mind. And therefore one doesn't have this Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi, this one-pointed determination. So, another verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Vyavasayat Buddhir Ekeha Puranandana Vokshaptas Turantas Cha. So, to have that one-pointed determination instead of being attached to Bhoga and Aishvarya is the trick. And how do you do that? How do you have that one-pointed determination? Well, I often advise the devotees that you have to think about what your purpose of life is. Just like in business, you have this thing called strategic planning. And to be successful in business or successful at school, like Keshav was very successful at school, and so was Isha very successful at school, you really have to be focused on your goal. No? Yes? Goal. Of course, one's goal in the material world will obviously to have some occupation, and obviously the reason is to make money. So you can support yourself and everything like that, or to at least have an occupation where you like to do what you're doing. Because many people in this world have an occupation that they hate. They just do it because they make money and they have to do it to support themselves, and it's actually a miserable condition. So we really have to figure out what our goal of life is. And oftentimes people approach me in Krishna consciousness and they say, I'm having a lot of trouble following the 4 regulative principles. I mean, this is the Western world. In India, I'm sure you all follow regulative principles very nicely and are very strict and wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure. I have no doubt about it. Anyway, so usually I don't smash people and say, you have to do this, you have to do that. I said, you're the one who has to take charge of your life. And you have to figure out what your goal is. If you want to be a materialist, okay, here's the path. Then that's your goal. But admit it. Be honest about it. And if you want to be Krishna conscious, state that. But don't pretend, I just want to be a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Bhogaishvarya Prasad. So once you have that goal of life, then everything falls into place at that particular point. Then whatever austerities are not austerities anymore, because you automatically do them. I mean, oftentimes I use the example of my own life, not insofar as Krishna consciousness, with, health issues and dietary changes. Everybody knows my diet is completely insane. Can't eat, everyone, wherever I go, I have to send them a whole list. You can't eat this, can't eat that, can't eat that.
And the YouTube videos to do that.
YouTube, provide YouTube videos. Spend hours and hours putting together videos. I mean, just like
Before you travel.
as I was traveling. Well, I had 10 hours in the airport on the way here. So I thought, I'll just put together videos so they know how to feed me.
What ingredients to use?
So the reason I'm doing that is actually because I'm focused on health.
Yeah.
Normally, if you ask people to change their diet, and if you ask people to change their diet by denigrating them, denigrating means criticizing them for being, what do they say, horizontally challenged. We have to be politically correct here. So you can't use the F word anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
Three-letter.
It's not a bad word. It's a 3-letter word, not a 4-letter.
Tell Keshav that's it.
He doesn't
He
know.
just woke up.
So basically, I'm just thinking, what do I want? I want to be healthy. I want to be able to serve Krishna. So automatically, it's not an austerity anymore. I don't lament that I can't gorge myself on pizzas anymore. I don't lament, it's just life, I don't lament that I have to get up early in the morning. Don't have to. I choose to get up, choose to get up early in the morning, and I could be comfortably in bed. I don't lament about those things because I'm just thinking, what do I want? What do I want? I want to be Krishna conscious. So sometimes for people to understand their goal in life, or the important goals in life, Krishna arranges a real wake-up call. Wake-up call means sometimes if you have health challenges, or like in the case of Bagrari, the hunter, he had a wake-up call because he had a virtual reality experience that Narada Muni showed him what was going to happen with his future. He said, oh my God. It's a wake-up call. Then he changed his goal in life. Krishna actually mentions wake-up calls in the Bhagavatam. Harishe, he says that for those who I especially favor, I give them a wake-up call. I'm paraphrasing. Tadanam Shanai. Isn't it?
He does.
What?
I said Krishna does.
Yeah. Harishe, Tadanam Shanai. That he takes away things. And then you just realize, like Grandfather Bhishma here in this particular case, Krishna really took away everything from him. He was lying on the bed of arrows, he couldn't move. I mean, you don't have much choices then. And obviously he is a pure devotee from the get-go. He is Mahajan, he's one of the Dwadasa Mahajans. But somehow or other he got caught in serving the wrong people. He realized that. He realized at the end that he had made a big mistake. He realized that he was sticking to mundane dharmic principles or mundane ethical principles to the exclusion of Krishna consciousness. That's really an important point too. He understood he was sticking, just to be more specific, he understood he was sticking to the principle of truthfulness. When Krishna wanted, his truthfulness was his vow to serve whoever was the king, whoever was the emperor. When Krishna actually wanted him to break his vow, because he needed to understand that vow was mundane. And it was counterproductive for Krishna consciousness. And Krishna showed it himself during the battle of Kurukshetra when, interesting story, Bhishma took a vow that today I am going to kill Arjuna. And the only way that Arjuna is going to survive is if Krishna breaks his vow. So Krishna, by his personal example, was showing the priorities and how sometimes you have to break a particular vow. We're not talking about the regular principles. Don't worry. Sometimes you have to break a vow or violate a vow in order to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Or you have to sacrifice secondary, not principles, but secondary details in order to carry out, like Prabhupada did, to carry out the mission of his spiritual master and bring people into the Krishna consciousness. So Krishna showed him that. Bhishma had a wake-up call, and then now he's understanding, I have to fix my mind on Krishna. He was fixing his mind on Krishna, and at least at the time of death. And we see this in many cases. I know, like many of Prabhupada's disciples deviated from Krishna consciousness after Prabhupada left the planet. But then Krishna arranged that when they got some disease, like cancer or something like that, wake-up call. So Krishna gives all these wake-up calls so that we can actually focus our minds on him. What is life all about? And so we should do it voluntarily before Krishna gives us a wake-up call.
Yeah.
So in order to do that voluntarily before Krishna gives us a wake-up call, we have to regularly hear, as mentioned in this verse, we have to regularly hear and chant and understand the nature of this world. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he stressed a lot. If you read Prabhupada's books, most of what Prabhupada wrote is very, very simple, very, very basic philosophy. Most of it is based on trying to wake up people so that they have that wake-up call voluntarily before Krishna actually pulls the rug out from under them. So therefore, by hearing and chanting, and also being inspired by hearing Krishna's pastimes and hearing the pastimes of the pure devotee, Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanat Vriyatak Sto Yavadradi Virunoti Saritsatam. Krishna gives one that impetus to focus, Ekeha Kuranandana. And actually that verse is very interesting. Vyavasayatmaka Budhir Ekeha Kuranandana Bahu Shakta Sranantasya. Because Prabhupada, that was one of Prabhupada's favorite verses, because that particular verse inspired Srila Prabhupada to carry out the mission of his spiritual master. And of course Prabhupada was always completely focused on the order of his spiritual master, but Prabhupada read the commentary on that particular verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And that commentary, when Prabhupada read it, inspired Prabhupada to focus. Of course he was already focused, I can't say he wasn't focused before, but to even focus more on the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which Srila Prabhupada had gotten at his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Calcutta, Ultadanga. And that was to preach in English and preach in the Western world. So that's the key. The order of the spiritual master is the key to advance in spiritual life. So one focuses on that. And the advantage of doing that, of course, is that one gets Krishna's mercy, one gets a higher taste, one gets detached from the material world because of the higher taste, and ultimately what? One goes back to home, back to Godhead. It's not that one should simply be thinking of at the time of death. We know, of course, there's a reference here to the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavan yajate ante kalevram hamtam livaiti kontiya sadata bhavata, whatever one is thinking at the time of death. That's what happens. So, but that focus, simply thinking about death, is not really going to help us focus on Krishna. We have to focus on our mission. Again, what is our goal in life? What is our mission? And, okay, secondly, in order to do that, we have to be engaged according to our psychophysical nature. Here's Varnashram. Of course, I've mentioned many times that the spiritual master engages the disciple according to their psychophysical nature. And that's, of course, one of the main messages of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is engaging Arjuna according to his psychophysical nature. So, one has to be engaged according to psychophysical nature, and one has to be attached to their service. In the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that in the beginning we're attached to the activity of service, and at the end we're actually absorbed in the direct rasa with Krishna. So right now, our vyavasayatmaka buddhi, one point of attention should be the service to Krishna. And the service to Krishna is non-different from Krishna. We shouldn't think that, like if we're driving a car, we shouldn't think, I just have to chant my japa to be Krishna conscious while I'm driving a car. Pay attention if it's your service, if you want to stay alive. Then pay attention. In other words, everything we do for Krishna, not just the sadhana process, chanting, hearing, but everything we do for Krishna should be done with rapt attention, because thinking that is Krishna, that is a manifestation of Krishna. Brahma pranam brahmahavir brahmagno brahmanalitam brahmatena gantavyam brahmakarma smadhanam, which the Bhagavad Gita states that if one makes a full contribution to Brahman, then one's activities become spiritualized or Brahman. The results of one's activities are spiritualized and Brahman, and one one becomes absorbed in Brahman. You know, Brahmarpan. That's one of the favorite verses of different groups. You know, Brahmarpan and Brahma. I'm not going to mention which group. Anyway, but it is a very important verse. So we focus on what service we've been assigned, and then we focus on why we're doing what our service that's been assigned, and then we're perfectly in Krishna consciousness. Not that we have to go to Radha Kund and just like become a so-called Babaji. Just like in the Jaiva Dharma recently, we're hearing about these Babajis at Radha Kund. And, you know, they're very wonderful. I mentioned last night about the relationships they had, the loving relationships they have. However, that particular status of being a Babaji, or what's called a Bhajan Anandi, someone who's just absorbed in bhajan, is not for us. As much as you would like to do that, I mean, sometimes I think, oh, goodbye, cruel world. You know, all the problems in the world, you read the news. Okay, I just want to be a Babaji. But really, that's not our service to Krishna. In order to be one of those Babajis, or to be on that particular status, you have to be free from anarthas, free from all unwanted things. So, like kama, krodha, mada, vatsarya, paribhaya, lust, anger, greed, illusion, and envy. So, we are meant to be Goshtananandis, which means active and bringing people to Krishna consciousness. And that's our bhajan. I mean, in addition to the sadhana that we do. But that's our purpose, to bring people to Krishna consciousness. And that's the most pleasing thing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Krishna says in the Gita. No one is more dear to me than he or she teaches this Bhagavad Gita to the devotees and to others. So this is actually how we do. We focus on the mission. We're very much mission-oriented, purpose-oriented, mission-oriented. And this gives us a purpose in life and actually helps us be vyavasayatmaka buddhir, aka akurunandana. And then everything else falls into place. No austerities, no problems, right? Like Prabhupada was asked about problems, and Prabhupada said there's no problem in the world except the lack of Krishna consciousness. Other things are just like, whatever. So, this is the point. So, if we want to be one focused, if we want to go back to home, back to Godhead, if we want to please Srila Prabhupada, if we want to help people, this is how we have to focus our minds. Right now, here and now. And don't wait to the time of death, like many of these devotees waited till the time of death, and they surrender to Krishna. Do it right now. There's no time that's better than the present time to do this. So, all right, so any questions or comments? Keep it short. Yes.
Thank you very much. You said so many nice points.
Yeah.
I find this very, very interesting because it says that those who are so focused in meditation and have a good chanting,
Yeah.
and at the time of death, then actually Krishna releases them from the bondage. However, I mean, I've got nothing against that, but however, we know that, I mean, Hidmayanti, Bhadrani, and then also like whoever comes in and does a good chanting, good meditation, like Krishna takes away bhaya, attachment and all of that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's actually a gradual process from beginning.
All right, so.
Yeah, then again, it's interesting at the time, for those who are really devoted, for them it says Krishna takes all of these bondage at the time of the death. But
Krishna takes away these things, even for those who are not devoted.
Yeah, for the
Krishna makes the arrangement.
Not just the bhakti.
Yashaham anugranami harishe tad dhanam shanai. Even for those who are not devoted, Krishna brings them to a higher standard. So what's the question?
So this is the Krishna's thing. So this is, it's not just for the bhakti yogis, it's for the other, just the on the path yogis as well, like Krishna. But then again, at the beginning it says those who are focused in meditation and does a good chanting, for them Krishna takes the time of the death.
Yeah, now you have to be focused on Krishna
Yeah.
and focused on chanting. However, the point I was making is that we should also be focused on our service. We should not see our service as less important than the chanting, and we should not see the chanting as less important than the service.
The quality, perhaps, is what.
The quality of service, the quality of chanting. While we are serving, we should be thinking of why we're doing what we're doing, and doing it in a spirit of devotion. Like in the nutshell verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anyabi Lashita Shunyam Gyanakarma Anavritam Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam Bhakti Rutamam. It states, first of all, there's the negative there, that we have to be free of desire for karma or gyan. That means gross enjoyment or liberation. Gyan is sometimes taken as liberation, even though it means knowledge, but in this particular case, context, it means liberation. So, but then anukulyena krishnanushilanam, that one has to be ready to do what Krishna wants, not what you want. Do what Krishna wants, do it actively, and do it with a spirit of devotion. These are the three qualities. That we should be chanting with a spirit of pleasing Krishna. One could chant, and they may have some other motivation, but that's not pure devotional service. We should be chanting, and Krishna, please empower me to serve you. It has to be connected to service, like Prabhupada would often translate the Maha Mantras, please, as a begging to please let me serve you, Krishna. Because you're approaching Srimati Radharani in the vocative. Hare is the vocative, O energy of the Lord, please let me serve Krishna. So you're praying like that. So the attitude has to be there. Not only you do the chanting, not only you do your service, but you have to do it with the concept of pleasing Krishna. Let this be pleasing to Krishna. Just like when when I'm doing my deity worship, my Govardhan Shilas, then there may be a tendency when you're doing something that's very repetitive every day, it may a tendency to put yourself on automatic pilot. Just like, and certainly I could do that. But then I have to catch, or when you're making an offering to the deities. It's just, the same mantras, the same procedure. Okay, been there, seen it, done it, as they say. And you have to really draw your mind back and try to think, what am I doing? I mean, sometimes you'll say something. I mean, there's a joke that devotees make sometimes. Wake me up when my job is finished. But sometimes you'll do something for Krishna, and then afterwards you'll think, did I do it?
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Isn't it? Did I say my Gayatri mantra today? Do you ever have that happen?
On auto mode.
Yeah. So really, that's inattentive.
I thought it was old age.
It's not old age. It's because the mind wanders. The mind wanders, and we have this tendency to get bored because we're doing the same thing, repetitive actions in this. Unless one has that disease,
Alzheimer's.
Not Alzheimer's, that's not what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
right. No, sorry.
OCD.
I see.
Oh, that's
OCD?
I have that.
OCD, hand washing or something like that. Like Lady Macbeth and that.
Yeah.
That's OCD.
Yeah.
So, there's a tendency when you're doing this, or when you're driving your car, for example,
Yeah.
you don't realize how you got to your destination.
Yeah.
So obviously you should be attentive because you can get in an accident. So it's like that with chanting or with our devotional service. We have to keep pulling the mind back. Because the whole point is, as I said at the beginning of the class, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindya. That's, of course, a verse about Maharaj Ambarish. He fixed the mind on Krishna, and it describes by using his hands to do something, like to go to the temple of the Lord, etc. So we have to pull our mind back. Why am I doing this? And think, I'm doing this to please Krishna. So while I'm making my offering of boga to the deities, I have to be thinking, Krishna, please eat this prasadam, eat this boga. Krishna, please be pleased with me that I'm decorating you this way. Not the ritualistic behavior. So the whole point is the mind fixed, vyavasayatmaka buddhir, be one-pointed like that. So, pure chanting means to please Krishna, to answer your question. And pure service means to do it for the idea of, or sometimes devotees do service just for their own personal aggrandizement. Because they want to be pleased. You know, they dress the deities, and then they go out there, did I do a good job? What does Krishna look like? Of course, we should praise the devotees who do a nice service for Krishna. But the motivation should not be to show off my personal expertise in dressing the deities. It should be, pleasing Krishna. And pleasing the devotees, too. One can ask the devotees, what do you think about the way I dress the deities? And the test is when a devotee makes you a correction, you don't get angry. Isn't that happen sometimes?
Yeah.
I think you didn't put the flute in right. What? You don't know anything about Krishna. One time a devotee dressed the deities, and they put the flute in backwards. And the devotees went to Prabhupada, and they complained. This devotee put the flute in backwards, and Prabhupada said, Krishna can do anything he wants. He can You heard that before? Yeah. Krishna can play the flute from backwards.
Straightforward.
So Prabhupada was appreciative of the service. Anyway, the whole point is pleasing Krishna. Tesham satadiyuktam bhajatam priti purvakam. Priti purvakam. With love. Priti purvakam dadami buddhiyogatam. Yenamam. So any other questions? Yeah.
You talked about the psychophysical nature there.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's obvious to what a psychophysical nature is. Sometimes it's a bit more subtle. How do we work out what is our true psychophysical? I'm still trying to work that out. So.
Well, what you enjoy or can do for 8 hours a day without going crazy. It's pretty easy to figure out.
It's not accounting, it's something. Just kidding. No, sorry.
It's not accounting. You don't enjoy it?
I love it. No, that's what I'm saying. I can do 8 hours, spreadsheets are fantastic. But no, but seriously, that's sort of material level. But
Things of money.
Numbers.
Yeah,
in
it's
the
not
brain is
it's
crazy.
not still if you enjoy it.
Yeah, so that's your psychophysical nature. Obviously, if you have some job or something like that. But it's always better to do something that's, even as far as your work to make money, it's better to have your work connected to your psychophysical nature. Because otherwise, you start to get miserable after a while. Whatever work you're doing. I mean, I'm not just talking about Krishna consciousness. I'm talking about, what do you do to make a living? So it should be something that keeps your mind occupied. Otherwise, otherwise your mind will wander. you won't be happy, you'll be miserable. And you're just waiting until the weekend comes.
It's a devil's workshop.
What's that?
It's a devil's workshop.
Yes, a devil's workshop. So it's important. Well, yeah, Prabhupada said the idle mind is a devil's workshop. To keep the mind occupied and happy. And doing something, and also in Krishna consciousness, doing service that we really enjoy. I mean, just like Arjuna was a Kshatriya, so he really enjoyed it.
Right.
Even though he had to do things that he didn't like, but he was enjoying the fighting. He enjoyed the challenge. You know, and so for those of us who are not Kshatriyas, we wouldn't enjoy that. If someone asks me to fight, I'll just say, okay, you win. It was like that when you've heard me talk about this before. When I was young, I was never into fighting, so when we went to physical education in school, you know, we had these fights like wrestling or something like that. So I would just whisper to the person, my wrestling partner, I'm going to let you win.
Yeah, get it done over with.
So they say, 1, 2, 3, wrestle. All right, you won. So that means my nature was not fighting or Kshatriya. And of course I didn't do very well in physical education, as far as my grades. But we have to understand what is our nature, our psychophysical nature. Like I'm doing now what I like to do. What's that?
Someone's on the phone.
Someone on the phone. Okay. I think that's time. And tomorrow we'll do the Jaiva Dharma. We'll continue with the Jaiva
that'll be
Dharma.
great.
Yeah.
I'll use my other computer. Because everyone's interested in that. It's really,
It's very deep.
really deep. And it's actually the same time that I normally give my class.
Yeah, it's the same time.
Same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay.
we'll see if someone has a question online. Hold on a second. Someone has it in the chat window. Dear Gurudev, whoops. For Grahasta, how to reconcile these goals, especially family members have different goals? That's an interesting question. Like you may have one goal and all your family members may have a completely different goal. Actually, very good. So, actually, Lord Chaitanya said that one should be like the gopis. That means the gopis had their relationship with Krishna, also they had husbands too. So they should act perfectly in this material world as not to arouse suspicion with their family members who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And so that way their family members will actually become more favorable. I remember when I joined the Krishna conscious movement, instead of acting in such a way, I went and started preaching to my family members. And that made them more inimical to Krishna consciousness. So instead, after a while, I would just go to my father and say, "Why aren't you a vegetarian? You're going to become a dog or whatever in your next life." Didn't go very well. So instead, then whenever I visited my father after that, I would just talk about mundane things.
Yeah.
So that's how Krishna advised the gopis. In the same way, just act as if you're, normally a materialist. And then people will appreciate, oh, he's a regular person. Krishna consciousness didn't ruin their lives. That's what people would think. And just like Prabhupada, his sister Bhishma was married to someone who was not at all Krishna conscious. I mean, he would drink and everything like that. And so, but she stayed with him, and she kept chanting and everything like that. She was initiated. And eventually, he became, influenced by her devotion and her association, and he became Krishna conscious. So that happens sometimes. So with people who are not, the family members are not interested in the same thing, just be a gentleman or be a lady with them. That's the main thing. And internally, you cultivate your Krishna consciousness. I mean, just like, take Maharaj Yudhisthira, for example. He was in charge of a kingdom, and he had to deal with a lot of mundane things. I mean, if you've ever been in charge of a kingdom, none of you have. And you have to, thank God, you have to deal with a lot of mundane things. You know, and he has to be connecting those things with Krishna all the time. And so, yeah, so he has to be somehow or other connecting in his mind that I'm doing this to please Krishna, to keep society together, because the devotees should act perfectly, like Prabhupada said. His disciples are perfect gentlemen and ladies. So that's the answer to that question. Another question is, please accept my pranams. There's not a question. Oh, that's from Hari Venu. He's in North Carolina. Okay, on that happy note, tomorrow we will actually continue with the Jaiva Dharma. Okay, all glories to His Divine Grace.
Good program.
AC